All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to class 5 of painting with color. And I know it has a different name, but I can't remember it right now. But we are going to be talking about the elements that make landscape painting stand out, which was a question that Darlene Crow asked last week. And I had a lot of fun just really kind of diving deep into, yeah, what are the things that make, it's one of those great questions that you kind of take for granted as you're working on each one of the elements like composition or color or values, and then actually figuring out what does that mean for the landscape. So this is going to be a lot of fun today. um, Cheryl just asked about the painting that's behind me, so I've got it zoomed in on that. That's a commission painting of a place here in Oregon called Sparks Lake, and it's a very odd size. It's 21 inches tall by 75 inches wide.
I love it.
Yeah,
Very
and
nice.
they wanted impressionist style, so I left a lot of broken color, but it was a lot of fun to review what we've been going through in the class about about doing gradients. You can see the gradients in the sky as well as across the mountains, and even in the foliage in the foreground where it has its lighter areas and warmer going into the cooler shadows, and even in the pine trees. There's gradients with where they're getting the light going down into the shadow and into a little bit more fog. So that was a lot of fun. Then we had the broken color, of course, which really leans itself towards impressionism. And I had painted an undercolor of kind of a reddish pinkish color. So I stained the panel, and I actually did do a drawing with pencil on this one to kind of lock in the big shapes, because sometimes with iconic areas, where people actually know the layout of the mountains and certain things, you want to make sure you get it pretty right. I did change some of the mountains because they get kind of redundant, and added a little more snow in areas and different things like that, a little more fog. Um, but so that was a lot of fun just to review and put it into action. So that's
It's
kind of what I want you guys to do for your homework or your final project, is just kind of looking back at what we've been learning, what we've been covering, whether it's using the wipe away, whether it's using broken color, whether it's using the gradients. And what was the other thing we covered?
Grays.
Grays. Yeah,
yeah.
grayed down colors. That's right. Yeah, chromatic grays. And you can see a lot of that in this painting as well, especially as things recede into space. I used no black in this painting, and I didn't even use any Payne's gray. So this is my split primary palette. I'm trying to think if I had any guest colors. I don't think I did. I may have had burnt umber just to speed up the drying time a little bit in some of the darks. But yeah, any questions on this painting?
It's just amazing. It caught my eye because it's not something I usually see in your studio. And if you look at the one above it, which is atmospheric, and then
Right.
look at this one below, it's radically to me, it's radically different.
Fabulous.
Right.
Very
And
nice.
then like what we talked about glazing and stuff, the other painting I've been working on is this one.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
And
Love
so I did that one as an acrylic underpainting. And then I've been just slowly glazing in with transparent colors. And most of the cools, I've not added any blue to this yet. The kind of bluish appearing colors are actually just the gray underpainting. So I wipe away those areas more. I'm contemplating whether I want to make them bluish or not, but I kind of like the real desaturated kind of feel where it's just warmth and values. But I could still come through and glaze maybe some blues along the upper clouds where they're cooler, and a little bit into the surf and maybe into the shadow sides of the rocks, but still deciding. And plus I'm letting the layers dry for about a day or two in between each glaze. So yeah,
They're
it's been
just interesting how these things, they're the same, but they're not.
right. Yeah, I mean, I'm feel like I'm working on too many things at the same time. I feel like if I dropped these off at the gallery, they'd be like nice pictures independently, but how do we show them together? They're so different in feeling and mood, and even in how I did them, how I built them up. So that part can be a little tricky, but again, I just love to play and experiment, and whatever I'm teaching gets into my head and I want to try it out, make sure I'm not misleading you guys too much. But anyways, great. Thanks
Nicely
for
done.
asking. And let's jump over to our examples from other artists from the handout here. So again, elements that make landscape paintings stand out. Yes, that's what I want. Okay, great. You guys see a very moody kind of golden painting?
Yeah.
All right, so this is by an artist named Anne McGill, and I just really like a lot of her work. It's often very simplified. I've been spending some time reviewing and looking at cinematographers for films, award-winning cinematographers. And I noticed that a lot of the scenes that they use to kind of show off the talents of these cinematographers is often about silhouettes or strong shadows, and kind of that just, yeah, it's silhouettes, light, and color I really find to be really useful. So let me just go ahead and start reading, and then we're going to go through, and I actually organized the images in the correct order this time. So I really did spend some time behind the scenes this week here. All right, elements that make landscape paintings stand out. This handout highlights key aspects such as the use of light, shadow, and color to create depth, mood, and atmosphere. It emphasizes the importance of composition, texture, and brushwork in adding visual interest. Additionally, the handout explores how artists convey specific atmospheres and moods, the roles of detail and realism, the impact of unique perspectives or styles. Our goal is to create landscape paintings that are authentic, evocative, and visually stunning. I want to put that last sentence in bold print up in my studio here as a reminder. So the first one I put was use of light and shadow and color. So, and then I broke those down a little bit. So here we go, looking at Anne McGill's image. Light and shadows are essential in landscape art. They add depth, mood, and atmosphere to scenes that might otherwise appear flat. Artists use light to draw attention to focal points and create contrast. Shadows add drama and mystery, suggesting the time of day, weather, the hidden elements. The interplay of light and shadow help achieve realism and atmospheric effects, right? Because this image, when you're dealing with silhouettes like this, can easily appear very flat or very, I think of it oftentimes as like stage settings, where they're just like flat panels, maybe overlapped. And I think she just does such a nice job with her line quality. Even though most all of her lines are somewhat soft, they do get softer, even if they're very dark, as they recede into space.
That
Really.
to me looks like something that could have just been a wipeout.
Yeah, totally.
Entirely.
Almost, yeah. Probably just come through and clean up some areas. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I'm drawn towards her work a lot, is there's what I've really been attracted to lately, and so much, why I probably like tonalism as much as I do, is the air of mystery. And I'm going to use that word quite a bit today. And I think that having mystery in the painting and maybe a bit of a storytelling element really does invite the viewer in. And I think all of these things that we're going to talk about today, that is kind of the key, right? Is we're inviting the viewer to participate in the painting. And I think having a sense of mystery, where they, ask some questions. I wish this was a less glary photo, but look at that contrast of light and shadow. Squint your eyes and it really even simplifies down even further. And then you have these beautiful, cool shadows on the white buildings. next to these pink bright areas, it really just draws our attention, right? Like this is where our eye really goes. And it's because of that contrast, and these are the only sharp edges. You know, he's got a couple other areas, but I hadn't seen this painting before, exploring to find images for this. So this was a real fun find and something I would love to do, you know, with an old barn, or, you know, something here from the Pacific Northwest, or maybe some of my pictures from Italy.
And who is this?
It's at the top here, and I've added all the images to our Padlet page, and I kept the numbers attached. But this is Arch. Well, yeah, they're on the Padlet page as well. I'm gonna spell it for you because it's Archkip or Archhip. I don't know. ARKHIP is the first name, and then the last name is KUINDZHI. And right now, this person is a one-hit wonder to me, but I look forward to going and looking up that name and seeing what other work they have available. So that is a lot of the fun too for me, is when I start to, you know, go down these rabbit holes, and I'm just like, okay, who are artists that are using light, shadow, and color really successfully? And all of a sudden, I've discovered, you'll see a couple artists that I've never heard of before that I'm just like, I just love, like, you know, you get tired of seeing Monet all the time and Van Gogh all the time and a couple other superstar artists. And it's really fun when you realize there's a whole worlds and worlds of other artists out there.
Oh, that's nice.
All right, the drama of shadows. Shadows create depth and add volume to a subject. They imply the time of day, weather conditions, and unseen elements, adding intrigue to the artwork. Yeah, see, this is another artist that I did not know, Michael Dudash, D-U-D-A-S-H. And I don't even know if it's acrylic or oil or, you know, what they're using. But I just love, I mean, when you look at this, what time of day is it?
Afternoon.
Right. And what's the temperature?
Warm.
Yeah. And it's just, I love the lazy shadows and the relaxed figure. I love how she devolves into the shadows, right? We don't even know where the top of her head or the top of her shoulders are, but it doesn't matter. You know, it just, enough information is enough. You got to trust your audience, trust your viewer, give them that sense of mystery, right? Beautiful picture.
Wow.
Right, this one's obviously a lot more the drama of shadows, right? And here we again have the silhouetted figure. This is by Libert George Emile. And I just thought, you know, it's kind of a simple image, but I really like that it's telling a bit of a story, right? I don't know if this guy is just kind of out there enjoying the reflections in the water, or if it's meant to be a little more sad. You know, you can fill in that emotion, and you can fill in, and it has very much a focal point and then a secondary focal point, right? A secondary area of interest. So I think that for a lot of painters, you know, we've been taught focal point, focal point, focal point. Where's your area of interest? But truthfully, in landscape paintings, a way to keep the viewer moving, because I think we would look at this painting for much less time without this figure. And then you get this, you know, little bonus of this church in the background here, right? So it kind of gets this nice little movement through it. And if it didn't have these two elements, a little bit of detail and contrast, that, you know, it'd be a nice painting still, but it's doing this. All right, drama of light and shadow, or drama of shadow again. You know, I wanted to add one that was, the shadows aren't super dark, right? And again, we learned so much from this painting so quickly. The directionality of the light, right? Who wants to guess where the light is compared to the viewer?
Behind my right shoulder.
There you go. Exactly right. It's coming through. I just love the colors. Look at these gradients as the shadows go into the light, that little transition color there. And also from the darks up into the lights, you get these multiple gradations of temperature. And it's such a soft and beautiful image, but at the same time, it's painted very kind of almost impasto, a lot thicker. There's a hint of texture in the snow. And then also within the trees. So this could have been, you know, done with very thin paint, but I think having that a little bit of thicker paint quality adds to the story, adds to the element. It makes the snow look thicker, like you'd sink down if you stepped into it. All right, interplay of color. Colors interact and blend to convey mood and atmosphere. Vivid, contrasting colors create drama, while soft hues evoke tranquility. Artists use color to create depth, perspective, and emotion, making the interplay fundamental in landscape art. All right. So this is a very colorful scene, right? We could name almost all the colors in here, you know, yellows to purples to greens to blues, but there's such a harmony and kind of a softness to the color, right? And everything has a harmony, I guess is the best word I can think of. And this is Isaac Levitan. If you guys do not know his work, very famous, I believe, Russian painter.
I was going to say the light in there says it's Russian.
Right, in the churches, the onion top churches. And I love so much of his work. But I got this, and I'm going to go to the next image here quickly, just to show you what a contrast you can get in feelings and mood just using color. So these are very earthy, organic, naturalistic, bang.
Oh,
Whoa.
I like that.
Right? I mean, put a black light on this one. But just, I mean, what a punch, but yet still such a bucolic, mellow image, right? If this was painted by, you know, myself or most other artists, it wouldn't have this punch, this drama, right? Like, tell me that when I went from Isaac Levitan here to here, your heart rate didn't skip or go up for just that second of,
Yeah.
holy cow, what is going on here? Got a dog knocking on my door. I don't know if I let her in or not. And then here's kind of an in-between. Oh, sorry, I didn't get the name of this artist on there. I can't remember their name right now.
It's down there in the corner.
Yeah, and I'm seeing maybe Donnell or something. Donnell CA. But I love that kind of, this is kind of a more realistic yet punchy with the high contrast of really cold to really warm to these purples, versus this one's just basically two colors or three colors, blue, purple, bright pink, to the very earthy color. So you can see how important our color choices are as we're doing our paintings here.
What I really like about this one, Michael, is contrasting temperatures.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, this one and the other one, you know, also. But yeah, I guess these pinks, after your eye adjusts to them, do kind of read almost as cooler pinks, except for up here. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. So yeah, if you want contrast, it's not only about values, lights and darks, it can also be about the, you know, color contrast or temperature contrast. All right, composition and movement. I really love this painting by Bill Anton, right? You've got this strong contrast, which draws our eyes immediately. And then it begins to follow the line that he's implying here, right? And you get this sense of movement in the piece. I also just love the sky. I love the underlight on the gentleman's hat and on the horse's belly. Bill Anton, he's a contemporary artist, just fantastic painter. I love his use of almost impressionistic, you know, rough hewn brushwork. but it feels detailed at the same time. Yeah, he's one of my heroes. All right. Composition and movement. A well-balanced composition guides the viewer's eye through the painting. Techniques like the rule of thirds, leading lines, and focal points add dynamicism and visual interest. Composition harmonizes shapes, colors, textures, and lines to create unity and visual impact. And this is a study by an artist that I really like named Nathan Fox, I think, Fowkes, folks. I don't know if I've heard his name said, but awesome painter. He does a lot with animation. He teaches a lot of animation oriented classes, and he does a lot of digital work and also a lot of gouache painting. So when I took up gouache, I actually went and read a bunch of his stuff and looked, and he just has tons of these little sketches that I just think are so thoughtful but yet loose and fast. You can tell he's really working out ideas. These are great, they're thumbnails plus, right? Because I think they kind of stand on their own. And that's been a thought I've been having, a lot lately is, should I take some of my thumbnails a little bit further and make them just little tiny 4x5 inch paintings on their own? Again, they could be loose and movement, but this still retains to the whole idea of composition and movement, right? How the painting just pulls your eye through, moves it around, brings you back. And in animation, where he's focused, that's really important to lead the eye, the viewer through the piece. I also just like his colors he uses oftentimes. All right. I have no idea how to say this artist's name, but man, I'm glad I discovered them on Instagram.
Oh, I love
couple
that
months
tree.
ago.
I love that.
Right.
Look how that limb throws a shadow on that tree. Oh my goodness.
Right. He's a little bit of pink right along the edge. And he has a lot of, so if you're on Instagram, follow Artem, I don't know, ARTEM, and then ROHOVYI. Rahobi, I don't know. But beautiful work. And he actually has a lot of little short videos of how he's doing it. And what he does is he does like the dark tree with some texture, and then he's just dragging the paint very thinly across and letting it capture and, not leaving in the ridges and things, and just beautiful and really creative color uses and ideas. So these are not wipeaways by any means. These are, they may be acrylic, they may be gouache. I don't know what he's using, but what really initially draws you into the piece is the texture, right? The texture, the movement. So texture and brushwork. Texture and brushwork add depth and tactile interest. By manipulating elements such as color, perspective, and contrasts, artists create spatial relationships between foreground, middle ground, and background, right? Really notice, as you're seeing these high contrast trees versus these mid contrast trees versus these low contrast trees in the back. Also, the texture is usually primarily reserved for things kind of as they come forward, or in some of his work, he just will really reserve it for his area of focus.
But they look like they're dead trees, but they come across as they're living and dancing. It's a kind of a contrast of feeling, because to me they seem like living creatures, even though they're dead.
Yeah, they remind me of the Ents from the Lord of the Rings.
I know.
Yes.
Walking, moving trees. Yeah. He's got some where it looks like they almost have an elbow, like they're, kind of in motion of walking. And so definitely check out more of their work. I almost added a couple just because I've been so infatuated with it lately. All of it. I mean, the design is gorgeous, the color contrast, the temperature contrast, the value contrast, and again, the texture is definitely the thing that sells. So I want, as we look at these, kind of go, okay, what if I had to pick one of these 14 different elements that I'm going to incorporate, that I'm going to talk about today? what would be the big one, you know, that's selling it? Whereas, you know, with Bill Anton's painting just before, oh, sorry, it's definitely this movement, right? And then, and that contrast, right? That dark and light is so strong that we just go right here. And then the movement, you know, shows us this baby cow that's, if we squint our eyes, almost kind of disappears, especially the darks of it. All right, texture and brushwork continued.
Michael, what's the artist's name with the trees? What did you say?
I have to spell it. Artem, Artem.
Huh?
And then Rohovyi. And again, all of these are on our Padlet.
Oh, good.
So I've named them and put them on there. If you guys find other artwork that you really like by the artist, you know, you can please feel free to share it as well. As you know, I'm hoping that I'm inspiring you to go and explore and look at other artwork, but not just to look at it and be wowed, but to look at it and say, why is it drawing me in? Because all of these things are going to be personal to us. Some people are going to say, I really like the punchy colors. Others are like, I really like the harmonious, quieter harmonies. Others are like, I like, you know, real strong design elements. Others are going to say, I really like, you know, it's about the color. So when you ask the question, you know, what makes a painting pop? All these things can make a painting pop. That's why I was like, well, I can tell you one thing in your painting that could have helped it. But going through all of these, and I'm sure there's hundreds more that I could, you know, break it down to. All right, this is artist named Christopher Long. I think his handle on Instagram is Long Painter. And I just love his use of impasto paint, meaning thick paint, right? All of his paintings are very juicy, almost all throughout. And I just think there's a bravery and a directness. They're all small for the most part too. He does lots of, you know, 5" by 5" and 8" by 8" paintings. And yeah, every week he does one painting every day, it looks like. And every week he posts his 5 paintings, and all on Friday. And they sell out really quickly. His prices are very reasonable. And it kind of inspires me to go, oh, I should get back to doing my morning exercise of doing a small 1-hour painting. And yeah, I'm always glad when I do that. But a lot of times I'm like, oh, let's just skip to the commission. Let's skip to the big project. Texture and brushwork again. So this, I wanted to show you the kind of more organic look versus a more geometric brushwork, right? Definitely using probably soft flats and palette knife, and really getting these beautiful, crisp, very graphic images. This is Sue Charles. And then I'm going to show you one more by her.
Wow.
So graphic, but yeah, isn't that beautiful?
Oh, that is good. That's
I'm
awesome.
actually using gold leaf in this painting.
Oh, I love that. I had some somewhere.
So I just, yeah, wanted to show you just a big variety of brushwork.
Oh, I love that better.
Right, but what, there you go, see, and that tells you something. So I've said this before in my classes, but when my wife and I were first married and didn't have money to buy paintings, but we were going to so many galleries, you know, the first Thursday gallery openings and everything, we used to play a game together where we would go in and look at the gallery, walk through it, talk about the paintings, and then as we were getting ready to leave, we would ask each other, if you could have one of those paintings, if they're just going to give it to us, which one would you want? And then we would ask why. And we learned so much about each other, about our tastes in art. You know, is it the subject? Is it because it has, you know, pretty flowers and you're working in your garden? Or is it about, you know, the mood or the colors because we're, you know, decorating our new home? You know, what was it? And then as we started to get money and, you know, we would sometimes go, man, we both picked the same painting. Let's go back and look at it. Right? But it really taught me a lot about just looking at art. Is it about the theme? Is it about the subject? Is it about the style that it's created? Is it about the paint application? Is it about the colors? Is it about, you know, all these things? So as you're looking at the work, especially one that's kind of stops you, right, Linda? And you just go, ooh, I like that one. Just I would, your next question to yourself, or I can ask you, or, whoever you're with, is why? What is it that you like in this painting, even a little more than something like this, which also I heard you say, wow.
I love
you
that
like,
too. I
yeah.
think both of them, what I see is the horizontal and vertical lines
Yeah.
merging that create, I think, emotion for me. Because I can now feel the coolness and the mystery of that water, not really seeing through, only seeing what's reflected. And now on the other one also.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, there's depth in the atmosphere. Even in both of these, there's depth in the atmosphere, but it's the water is a reflection of what's above it. There's mystery. I find that mysterious. And I find that I want to know what's behind in those trees.
There you go. So here we go. Let's talk about this one. So atmosphere and mood. Artists convey specific atmospheres or moods like a peaceful sunrise or a stormy sea using aerial perspective, overlapping form, and diminishing scale. These techniques gives the illusion of depth and three-dimensionality. So a little nervous I wouldn't be able to pronounce that word. Yeah, I picked this one by George Pratt because it's wonderfully simple, right? It's just a story told in three shapes and a limited color value range. We squint our eyes and things really start to merge. These trees get kind of lost, but it's beautiful. And it definitely, again, kind of leans towards that more poetic feeling that I love in paintings. I love, and when I think of poetic images, I think of what are they taking out, right? What's the simplicity? What is the story and emotion that they're trying to convey? And I think this painting does such an interesting job of that. It's very cold. Not sure I would, want it hanging in a area where I wanted to, be warm and comfortable, but it's beautiful. Right?
Wow, that's beautiful too.
John O'Grady. Yeah. But it's the same thing, right? Atmosphere and mood. And what a big difference, right? But both paintings are all about atmosphere and mood.
Is that oil?
I actually have no idea. I almost think it's a mixed, like I feel like some passages of it almost have like a pastel feel
Yeah.
to them. I really don't know how this artist is doing this. It might be oil. Kind of feels like oil. When I actually look up at the pastel area, I can see underlying texture that they're probably softly scumbling their brush across. So I'm guessing this was done in, multiple layers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I wasn't looking up, so many artists for today's lesson, I would have definitely gone down some rabbit holes looking deeper into some of these artists. And it's not like I want to paint, like John O'Grady, but when I look at this, I can learn a lot, or like, okay, there's things in this that I really like, the soft haziness, the mood, the atmosphere, what are things that John's doing really well that I could, borrow. Thanks, John. I can incorporate into my work. And that goes for all of these paintings. All of these paintings were picked by me because they all inspired me in some way. And I'm hoping they'll inspire you as well.
Wow.
Yeah, atmosphere and mood again. So this is T. Allen Lawson. And I just think he's he's a living artist. I think he's just amazing at mood. He uses a very limited palette, in my understanding. I've only ever met him once, and it was out at a beach, so I didn't really get much time to talk to him. Plus, he was kind of flocked by artists. People love his work. And I love that it's almost tight and rendery, but at the same time, he's using broken color throughout.
Oh, wow.
Real close harmony. There's not big jumps. Love like these little bits of purple in these trees. You know what I mean? It has this big impact when we look at it from far, and it's just beautiful and quiet, right? This huge quiet area. If I was out there, standing beside T. Allen Lawson and painting this, I'd have probably cut off that whole top of the sky, right? Just my instinct is let's zoom in on what's interesting to me. But he left this whole area, right? And you know, you've heard me say, is this painting a skyscape or is it a landscape, right? Is it about the ground or the sky? This painting is telling us it's about the sky, but there's so little going on
Why?
that it kind of bounces back and forth, right? So that, you know, goes back to, we learn the guidelines so that we can break them purposefully, right? So we know why and how we're doing it. I'd love to talk to him about this painting and see why he made the choices he made, but it's just a beautiful, and this is a painting to me that just makes me go, ah, it's very relaxing. It's very introspective. Let me make sure I didn't just skip one.
Wow.
All right, so
It's nice.
here's something you don't see too much in my work, but this is detail and realism, right? I always have a couple artists in the class who are just like, yeah, but how do I paint all of the rocks? How do I paint all the grasses, right? And that's definitely doable. You know, it's just a matter of taste. So detail and realism. While some landscapes thrive on impressionistic or abstract styles, others captivate with meticulous detail and lifelike representation, right? I love this little bit of light back here, kind of, again, silhouetting these trees, and that leads you to these boats. There's a gentleman back there with a boat. So a lot of times these paintings can be a lot of fun, whereas I look at them, I'm like, oh boy, I don't want to do that. I don't want to paint all these rocks, but they're sure fun. And it's almost like a Where's Waldo kind of discovery, right? Oh, there's another boat back here. Oh, you got a flying bird and more boats and more birds. You know what I mean? There's just so much going on, but I think that this is the focal point. The lines lead us here, the lines lead us there, this line leads us here, the cloud leads us here, and you have the only sunspot. All right, what do you guys think?
Paintings have something small that you can discover.
Yeah, discovery. Add that to mystery. Discovery. Okay. That's a great word. Again, that's just such a fun way to invite the viewer in, right? We go back to the Where's Waldo books that were bestsellers for I don't know if it was my childhood, but I mean, they were huge sellers, and it was just that act of discovery. And while you're looking for Waldo, there's all these other things going on in the painting, right?
I also think you could call them, you could call them Easter eggs.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, they do call them Easter eggs sometimes.
Like in movies and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. And it is. It's a way for the artist to say, thank you for taking the time, right? And when I say that, you know, we want, you know, if they're not going to buy the painting and they're not going to invite their friends over to look at the painting, the third best gift they can give me is their time. Just a couple more seconds looking at my work and hopefully appreciating it is a way of a form of reward for us artists as we show our work. And this is a great way to get it, is having those little Easter eggs or gifts that you're giving. And it, you know, it doesn't need to be a photorealism or, you know, a tightly rendered detailed image to get that, but you will see that more often, I think. Oh, let me grab my notes. One of the artists had a really good comment on that. He called it the 3-3-30 rule. So it's 3 inches, 3 feet, and 30 feet. And he was taught to look at paintings in this way. So at the 3 inches, right, you're really up against the canvas if you're not in a gallery with sensors that will beep every time you get too close. You know, I get beeped all the time when I'm in art museums. Like the guy will be literally like, oh, it's you again. Please stop licking the painting, sir. But that 3 inches is all about where you're just really studying the technique, right? How the heck did Paul Flickel, you know, do this? How did he convey the idea of all these rocks and all these grasses and this beautiful contrast back here, right? So you got 3 inches, and then you have 3 feet where you can kind of see the whole painting, right? But you're really still looking at the detail. So it's technique, and now we're looking at the composition, right? We're really starting to look and see, how did Paul lead me to this area, right? And then once we get to the 30 is 30 feet, right? Where we're really back. And we're looking at, what are we looking at? We're looking at the composition. We're looking at the values and how the values are helping to lead the eye. I've always thought of it in reverse, because when you walk into a painting or into a gallery, you know, we're at 30 feet from the images, right? And that pulls us in, and then we start to move in and looking at the composition. And then, you know, that's the ultimate reward, is when a viewer really gets up close and begins to look at my work and looking for technique, looking for the little tricks, if you know, maybe they're another artist and just kind of want to learn. So anyways, I love when a painting really pulls a viewer in and makes them want to investigate. All right, I've used Renato Muccello in other classes, and he, I believe, is from Canada, shows in Washington sometimes. And I think of his work as very realistic and detailed. He does use a fine liner brush in a lot of his grasses and things. He does start off sometimes doing kind of a wipe away or big shapes, and then he just really just keeps refining. What I really love is he loves his moody clouds, and you know, he'll have areas of high contrast and hard edges, medium edges, and soft edges in his work. Also, a beautiful harmony of color and temperature in his work. And look at this focal point, right? Even this creek, right? It turns, leads us. This line leads us. This line leads us. This line leads us, right? But it's all very subtle, and it doesn't feel like we're being tricked.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't feel like he's, you know, beating us over the head of, this is my focal point, look here, even though it has that beautiful sunspot and soft edges around it. Yeah, love his work. Brent Cotton. All right. So I've also talked a lot about his work in class. Now we're going to be talking about emotion and story, right? So emotion and story. Compelling landscapes often evoke emotions or tell stories, allowing viewers to connect personally. What emotion is this painting conveying?
Calm.
Peaceful.
Calm, peaceful. Yeah, I mean,
No
the
threat.
deer is not scared at all, right? It's calm, it's out there, it's unbothered. You get this beautiful, you know, backlit. Again, remember the silhouettes, how powerful those can be. So you'll see, I guess I'm very much attracted to silhouettes, both in painting and in my movie cinematography. And that may just be a stage I'm going through, but who knows? But yeah, the story is calm. The story is a beautiful morning that you're just kind of, I mean, it's if you were out there and let's say, you know, walking your dog and your dog didn't start barking and scare away the deer, whatever, you're out on an early morning, or maybe could be sunset. You just feel blessed to be there, to be witness to this moment, and you know, blessed that this deer isn't scared. You know, it's always neat when wildlife that's not scary is not scared of you. If it's scary wildlife, it's better if it's scared of you as well. Let's look at a couple others.
Well, I notice if you go back to that one, he has he's using 3 very subtle spots to make a triangle. I mean, there are 2 in the cloud and then 1 in the bottom of the tree.
He has those spots all over, and they lead your eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost a triangle within a triangle too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's very subtle, but for me, that's where it just keeps me moving and then moving and moving.
Yeah, and this could be a very stagnant image. It really could. And then what I love too is look at this gradient.
Yeah.
And he's giving us a little bit of information in here. little bit of information in the trees. There's a little bit cooler side, a warmer side, a darker. The deer even has a gradient where the light is catching the butt end of the deer a little more, and then the thinner legs are, you know, a little more transparent feeling. Otherwise, if it was just done as a dark silhouette, it'd feel like a cutout.
Yeah.
And look at the lights in the sky. It's very soft.
Sorry, we're done looking at it.
Oh,
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But see, I'm learning. I'm seeing how soft his little lights are in the sky. That's really wonderful.
Right. And even the sky is very soft and the transitions are gradual. Because again, yeah, we could easily just punch this, you know, highlight up. We could really make this a strong contrast, but it would destroy the feeling, the mood, and the story of the piece. I love this little tiny sketch by Jeremy Mann. Jeremy Mann is a heck of a figure painter. Oh, he's so good. They're a little on the risque side a lot of times. Interesting fellow from what I've seen online, but just an amazing painter. And I just love this little sketch. Like, you know, if it was actually done on location or not, I don't know, but I just think it just captures so much and done in such an abbreviated fashion. I love the color harmony. Everything is just feels good together. But yet there's a story, right? This figure with their back half turned to us, looking out to sea. And I just love the idea of inviting the viewer to feel the narrative, to fulfill the narrative, right? All right, so this is actually a scene from artists doing work for the movie Puss in Boots, I believe. I'm not positive, but I think that might be what it is. And what I really liked here is you got this tiny figure, really stands out because they're the only fuchsia colors in there, but against this huge tree, right? And I don't know if you guys have seen the newest Puss in Boots movie, but if you ever have to watch a movie with your grandkids, the newest Puss in Boots is beautiful and amazing. Also, Wild Robot, if you really want to watch a beautiful, charming movie with your grandkids, both just gorgeous. I mean, you don't want to pause them and just look at the background so often, how they're using color and how they're using size contrast and how they're using all these different elements. But I just love the innate story in this. You know, again, I don't even know if this is actually Puss in Boots. It may have just been one of the artists that worked on Puss in Boots, other paintings. But I just love the story that it conveys, just a little hero or a little adventure in this great big world. All right, unique perspective or style. So I added a link to check out Amy Bennett's work in our Padlet under the online links. Amy Bennett, I had not heard of until this last weekend when I was talking about the other artists about this class and the idea for this class. This gentleman just said, you've got to look at Amy Bennett's work. And she does different big collections. So each collection has 15, 20 paintings in it and definitely sticks to a theme. So one of them is all about this aerial views of this community. And she literally built an entire community out of styrofoam and using little model train stuff and just took tons of photos. So you can really go, I mean, there's farmlands, there's whole towns, but I just love the unique perspective, and it has an odd feeling to me, right? It feels naturalistic, but at the same time, very artificial.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah. I urge you to look at more of Amy Bennett's work. And some of them are just kind of like the next one I'm going to show you, just kind of make you really stop.
Wow.
Wow.
Right? It's so weird. Like you look at it and there's so much going on, but at the same time, you have no idea what's going on. Like, why is this seemingly teenage girl have a fire in her room, a very messy room? And I think this is a snow shovel. I have no idea, but I love the enigma of it. I love the mystery. And I love that, you know, she doesn't tell us anything. We're just asked to fill it in. And I think that's really interesting.
I'm laughing. Her parents probably gave her the shovel and said, clean this room up. So she just lit a fire in the trash
I
can.
know a faster way to clean this room.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
she's it out the window.
I call this narrative painting, and I really
Mhm.
love narrative painting. To me, it's, you know, it's a painting that has a story, and there's probably so many stories that people could compose out of this painting.
Yeah, let me see if I can find my, I have a hard time saying favorite, but please take the time to go through Amy Bennett's work and just explore, because again, she just takes on completely, I think it's under nuclear. Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can, if I put it on the screen, if you guys can see this. Did it change to a different painting?
Yes,
of a
it did.
bathroom?
It's the toilets.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's an aerial view, very geometric, very like from straight above, looking straight down, an open door, light coming through these windows, splashing onto here. And then let me see if I can zoom in on these. It doesn't let me zoom in much, but there's two boys standing on top of the toilets. And I don't know if you know, they're hiding from whoever's going to come in. If they're, you know, they're obviously hiding, because you've seen that in movies, right? Where the person's looking underneath the stall doors and they hide on top. But I just love, like, I have no idea why they're doing that. What's going on?
Am I the only one who's looking at these last few and saying, why?
Yeah, no, you're not.
But because I look at it and say, why would you paint that?
I don't
Ah.
know.
She's painting a story, and
I know,
Well,
but I don't think I like the story then. That's what it
Yeah,
comes down to.
exactly right. And there's a lot more of hers that I'm sure you would, you know,
Yeah,
respect.
the
a
one
lot
with the
more.
people on the roof.
Well, that it just makes me dizzy looking at the last one.
Yeah, that aerial view. But yeah, I mean, just a little slice of life. Just I don't know, maybe she's scolding him. I told you, no cookies. Stop asking. But you know, looks, there's just tons of these just little slice of life. Right? I don't know. So, anyways, I've enjoyed looking at their work very much.
That's the one that
it's,
All right.
now that I like. There,
they're
I'm
very
not asking why.
interesting. They're interesting
Yeah,
and well done, but they make me feel very, very edgy and uncomfortable. I don't know. It's just a difference.
I think that might be part of the point. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, exactly. And that's what's so neat about art, is like, I look at her work and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it, but sure, enjoy. It's almost like I've watched, you know, tons of, you know, mystery shows on BBC, and all of a sudden then I watch a comedy, right? Just to kind of break it up, right? And
Yeah.
then I can
it-
go back to the mystery shows that I like.
Yeah, it evokes strong emotion. It may not, it's really
Yeah.
uncomfortable, but it's very strong.
So are you guys seeing The Mysteries of Harris Burdick?
Yes.
So this, I also posted this whole thing. It's a PDF online to this book. And I suggest this makes a great gift if you have young, inquisitive, creative students or kids or grandkids. And it's by Chris Van Allsburg, who's one of my
didn't he do
favorite.
the Polar Express?
Yeah, and Jumanji.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. But
Yeah.
this book is so interesting. So he basically just says that his friend worked at a publishing house, and that a gentleman named Harris Burdick came in and dropped off, I think it's 12 or something, pictures with, and each one was for a different story. And he dropped them off with just the title and one sentence. And just said, you know, would you be interested? I will bring back the whole book the next day if you're interested in it. And they never got a hold of him, and they never saw him again.
Oh,
Wow.
So all they have is like this: Archie Smith, boy wonder. And it says, a tiny voice asked, is he the one?
Wow.
Right? And it's just, I don't know what, you know, I'm guessing these two dots are talking to each other, but, you know, and it's like this, under the rug. This one used to scare the crap out of my daughter. She hated this picture. We always had to go past it. 2 weeks passed and it happened again, right? And I love this one. A strange day in July. He threw with all his might, but the third stone came skipping back. And I just love this focus that this is the stone coming skipping back. But
Yeah.
it's all these lines leading us in, you know, all these lines leading us in. He's just such a master. And I think he was doing these with graphite. Missing in Venice, even with her mighty engines in reverse, the ocean liner was pulled further and further into the canal. And again, just all these guidelines and then this very strong contrast. So you can really see, I mean, illustration and animation and movie, you know, we learn from looking at all of this stuff, and they're all using the same techniques, the same ideas, these 14 things that we're talking about, to tell the story or to invite us to get into the story. Another place, another time. If there was an answer, he'd find it there. And we know where there is because it's dissolving back into space here.
Mhm.
Uninvited guest, his heart was pounding. He was sure he had seen the doorknob turn. I just like to think that they have this house that has a door that they don't know what or why. And then look at this. Can you guys see the side of a leg,
Yeah.
a foot? And
Yeah.
again, look at all the guiding lines coming in.
I would like
The
to know
heart.
what formed his, what created that thought process? What was?
I don't know. I wonder if they were ideas, stories that he was thinking of to do or what. And this one, again, you've got this silhouette back here. Oh, I wish I could zoom in. Silhouette of a dog. And that dog appears in every one of Chris Van Allsburg's books at one point or another. But the silhouette. So we quickly see, even though they're super tiny, this boy and his dog, the harp. So it's true. He thought it's really true. And then hidden in there almost is this harp just sitting there.
Yeah.
This one also used to scare my daughter because she was always falling asleep with books open. Mr. Linden's library. He had warned her about the book. Now it was too late. I love this one. The 7 chairs. The 5th one ended up in France.
Funny.
And
Well,
then
he has a sense of humor.
he uses wallpaper a lot, especially in his Jumanji book. The snakes and stuff will hide, you know, against wallpaper that kind of resembles their markings and things. The 3rd floor bedroom, it all began when someone left the window open. Looks like the wallpaper is just going to fly off. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Looks like one already did.
Yes, I like it.
Just dessert. She lowered the knife and it grew even brighter. So it's, I don't need to read them all, but they're so fun, right? I would have loved this as a little guy. The house on Maple Street. It was a perfect liftoff.
Ooh, I like that idea.
But yeah, I just love the idea of narrative. And, you know, maybe because I did come from the background of illustration, that's what I studied in school, but also narrative plus mystery invites the viewer in, right? So how do we do that in landscape? It's not always so clear. And maybe it's not in all of our paintings, but that is a tool we can use. All right, where am I at here? Balance and proportion. Number 10. Okay, we're on the next page. That's why I couldn't find it. Balance and proportion. Landscapes often balance land, water, and sky. Subjects like humans or animals should feel connected as if they live in the world you are creating. Techniques like the rule of thirds create pleasing composition. So what I grabbed these is they're really about movement, right? Even though it's this beautiful, detailed image, I love these ruts here, or, you know, the eroded bank. Now it just really, and it's kind of ugly, right? But it just leads us in so beautifully and brings us through. And it's almost got a yin and yang of the two sides, but it doesn't feel stagnant at all to me. It feels like there's just a lot of movement, a lot of motion. And again, using these guiding lines to get us to eventually a very subtle kind of a focal point. That's kind of that reward for getting, you know, mucking through this and walking around, and we get to there. Yeah, and then again, these lines lead us towards it. So composition, again, for me is the most important thing. If you were to ask me, what's the one thing I should really work on to move forward in my art? It's going to be composition today. It's going to be composition tomorrow. It's going to be composition in a year. It'll be composition for the rest of your life. I think it is the most important thing. It is the thing that everything else is built on.
On that last one, I wanted to say one thing about that, if I could.
Please.
All right. This to me, so sometimes when I look at something, I can get this sensory, other senses get involved. I can feel myself walking out into that crappy area and the crunch of my feet and how it feels. And that is what is engaging for me about a lot about this painting. It engages me. He's created in those in that scene, I've been there. I've done that.
You know the sound of the
How
ground.
that feels. I know the crunch, and so sometimes paintings for me, if they can trigger those other senses.
There you go. Write that down. Trigger senses. That is great. Yeah, I'm surprised that never came up. But yeah, sometimes you can, this makes me cold.
Yes, that makes me cold, I was going to say.
It looks like it's going to be very treacherous to walk on because that ground is frozen. It's not just mud, it's frozen. And when you step into that snow, it's going to have that crusty top layer.
Yep.
That's going to cut into your ankles. And, but it's beautiful at the same time, like as uninviting as all those things I just said. It looks like, but it would be the reward of this view, right? The reward of being in this beautiful environment. So yeah, there's been times when I look at a painting and I can almost hear the crashing waves or the seagulls, right? I can almost smell the salt air, right? And just like this, I actually feel colder than I did a couple minutes ago looking at this painting for a while.
That's one of the things that I like about your paintings, is that happens a lot for me.
Thank you.
Well, one of the things that I just not coming to grips with is I'm always looking for the perfect photograph, but what I'm seeing is that these artists see something really special in the very ordinary that
oftentimes, yeah, one of the guys in my group, he's only painting from his bad photos. And he takes a lot of selfies where his wife is not even, is like half behind him, and he does, yeah. All right, again, balance, right? The scene, I think I maybe have used this previously in a class, is Mark Hansen. And I love this trail leading us to this light. Maybe I even used it last class, I don't remember. But what I really like is that this is, kind of the main thing. You get this little contrast here of the, yellow against all this blue and cool color. And then you got this big sky, but then you have these big clouds that really kind of lead us through and balance out what could be a very bottom heavy painting. So sometimes balance can be very subtle and proportion. And yeah, I just love how this painting, very cold and quiet, but it keeps us moving through it. All right. Natural outdoor light, right? This is very atmospheric, very hazy painting by John Brandon Sills, but it feels real to me. I see fog all the time, and I love fog. But it feels, even with these bright purples and other things, the light feels real to me. So natural outdoor light. Pay attention to natural outdoor light. If you can, try to paint outdoors to speed up your learning and understanding of light and its effect on the landscape. And that means in a lot of different conditions. A lot of us, maybe we'll get out and plein air paint, but it's got to be 70 degrees. It's got to be, the middle of the day. It's, and oftentimes the middle of the day has the least interesting light for me. But the good news is the light changes slower during the middle of the day. But get out and observe and just see why is this look like this? What's happening? What is the effect of the atmosphere? All right, let's make this one a little smaller here. This is Mike Hernandez, who does a lot of gouache painting as well. Also works, I think, with the film industry. I'm not positive. But what I like is this is a very impressionistic, very quick painting, but squint your eyes and it almost looks realistic. I mean, almost quite real, where the colors really have this natural effect. You can tell he spent a lot of time studying how the light moves through the water down in California and how the foam, right? So even though it's a very loose and gestural and active painting, when you squint down or when you're 30 feet away, it's really going to hold up, and it just has such a natural feeling to it. So I really liked that idea of painting in a very loose, active way, but still retaining a sense of naturalism. Not all his paintings are like that. He paints some very colorful and vibrant paintings.
Wow.
Andrew one.
All right, so this is a very, very famous painting. You guys know the name?
Wyatt.
Christina's World.
Wyeth.
Yep.
Yeah, Andrew Wyeth, Christina's World. I think one of his most famous paintings.
He's my favorite artist in my life.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, he's amazing. I remember seeing a show of his just as I was getting into art school, and just I think it was all three of the Wyeths and maybe even some of his instructor, who I can't remember the name right now. And yeah, very melancholy. A lot of the work has got a melancholy feel to it. So symbolism and narrative, right? So you have this old, dilapidated prairie kind of feeling home, a hill, and then obviously Christina. And so if you don't know the story of it, first, I want to ask, what do you think this he's trying to tell in this story? Or in this painting?
She's
I
longing,
know the story, so.
longing for something.
Yeah, it's hard when you know the story.
Does everybody know the story?
I don't know the story.
No.
Yeah.
All right. So what
She
is
can't
this?
walk. Christina
Yeah.
can't walk, and he paints her throughout her life. This is in Maine, and but she can't walk. So somehow she got out there in that field. And I guess someone would be coming to help her, but this is her life and this is what she's looking at.
Yeah, it's just interesting. So I almost wonder if this mode area is more what was meant for her to like get out and around, and then she
Could
went
be.
beyond. I don't know, maybe she's just getting beyond it. Maybe it's a good story of her, exploring in her own way. I don't know, but yeah, it's always had such a melancholy and obviously a longing. Like you can see like that she really, is ready to get back home. But yeah, so symbolism and narrative. Landscapes can tell narratives through symbols and specific details, from mythology to historic events or environmental messages.
Wow.
Yeah, I just stumbled across this when I was looking through some images at a Russian school, and I don't know anything about the artist, don't know anything about the scene, but I just love this innate narrative of it. And I don't know exactly what it means, if she's waiting or if she's just out there looking, or, maybe the artist actually said, hey, other student, do you mind going out there and just standing to create this beautiful contrast and silhouette again?
It
And then I love
depends
the
what you need to
foreground
feel from that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they could be just out there watching the sky change through those trees that we're seeing in the reflection. And I kind of like that idea that this viewer is looking out here and we're kind of seeing what I believe it's a woman, is seeing in the reflection. Also, look at these boats.
Yeah.
What do you notice in there?
Leaves.
Leaves. So they haven't been used in a
Haven't been
while,
used, yeah.
Deserted.
right? And this old dock, an interesting turn to it. But I just love this image. Yeah, very interesting to me.
Forlorn.
All right, mood. Everybody knows Edward Hopper.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, color, light, and texture affects a landscape's mood. So I know a lot of these aren't landscapes, but I thought I would branch out and show some other stuff. Consider the desired atmosphere for the painting, whether peaceful, joyful, or foreboding, right? So what do you see when you look at this? What do you feel when you look at this?
She's not happy.
She's very introverted.
Sad.
Sad.
I
Thoughtful.
like that she's wearing one glove too. She just took off one glove to drink her coffee or her tea.
She's cold.
Yeah, and it looks like it's probably cold. She's got her big coat. I mean, she hasn't even, undressed, taken her hat or her coat off. And it shows that maybe there was meant to be somebody else, or she's waiting for somebody else, or this used to be a spot that she used to go with somebody else. One of my favorite elements in this is this big window looking out into the night, I believe. And we see the lights from the restaurant reflecting in there. So even the outside is kind of blocked out to us, and we're just seeing more of the interior space.
She's lonely.
It does feel very lonely. Yeah, so I didn't want to end on just sad. So this is a landscape, and this is by Cami Polzin, Polzin. And again, it's just such a different mood. It's got drama and action, but it still definitely conveys a mood, right?
Looks like Brent Cotton.
A little bit, yeah, just using thicker paint and more impasto. Yeah, and it's got its silhouetted trees. That's probably what drew me to it initially. But I do love the movement and the motion and the gradient of colors. And then they just left these trees pretty stark, pretty dark. Didn't feel it necessary to tell us everything else.
Wow.
So this is Nathan Fox again. One I showed earlier with design. Another quick sketch by him.
I like that.
I think it's gouache, but I am not positive. Looks like he even drew over it. He may have been using it as an example of moving the viewer's eye for his students. But yeah, I just love the light. So what a difference in mood between this and this, right? This feels kind of closed in, sad, lonely. Whereas this one fills me full of like excitement and energy and hopefulness.
Yeah.
So that's, so much power in painting.
I hate to say this, but I see a snowman. Once you see it, you can't unsee
I
it.
know. Why did you say that? Now I see it.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
He's got a big orange nose.
Really sorry.
Well, I don't see him, but I won't look.
Water.
Look,
He's
don't
in the
look.
water.
He's in the water. That
Yeah,
red
that's
stone
what-
is his nose. And the black stone is an eye.
And his mouth.
Right
Yeah.
there, you get it.
Sorry.
His
Oh,
big
I gotcha.
bottom,
I got you. I was looking up in the trees there. I see it. Yeah.
how the water's wiggling. So the water's moving.
Yep. He's got wiggle to he's added the sense of movement and everything else. All right. The last one we'll go over really quickly is abstracting the landscape. Just because this is more personal for me a little bit. I'm thinking a lot about abstracting the landscape. So modern abstract landscapes reinterpret natural scenes with emotional depth. They blend old traditions with abstract styles and bold colors, sometimes using mixed media. Abstract elements. Modern works often use shapes, colors, or textures without image-based representation, creating mystery and allowing for interpretation. So when you first saw this image by one of my very favorite painters, David Sharp, did you see a landscape or did you just see an abstract kind of almost mess?
I saw a landscape.
Me too.
I'm sorry, I heard Cheryl. What was the other one?
I see landscape.
I see landscape.
I see
Is it-
landscape.
I
Isn't
love
that
it.
interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, and what I key in when I'm seeing that is like, it's amazing how little we need to see a landscape, right?
You see the horizon. There's the horizon there.
Yeah. And these
And the
what
trees.
seems like
trees.
silhouetted trees, and
Right.
that makes this kind of like a possibly snowy field of some sort.
Mhm.
But I just love. This is one of my favorite paintings
It's
in the
beautiful.
last couple
I
of
love
years.
the colors.
I keep coming back to it. And it's more about, you know, whether or not I would want to buy it or anything. It's more about just what he's doing. Again, that poetry, what he's doing with so little, with such impact. And again, that mystery, right? It invites the viewer in a different way. It's not so much about narrative or anything, but it's inviting the viewer in to kind of fill in the information.
Yeah.
Dynamic use of color. Again, this is for abstract. Bright, unusual color schemes bring canvases to life and evoke emotions. This is David Tipton. If you get a chance to look at his work, he paints on vellum. And a great painter. I'm going to go out and paint with him this season. He just does some really abstract stuff and some more representational, but this would be about as representational as he gets. But I just sometimes I'm just like, how is he seeing what he's seeing, and how is he coming up with these ideas? Mixed media. Contemporary artists combine materials to add dimension and depth using paints, textures, and sometimes digital elements. Conceptual themes. I don't know if I have one more or not. Yep. Conceptual themes like environmentalism, urbanization, human nature relationship give modern landscapes relevance. So this is our final image, a Russian painter who I'm not even going to try to pronounce their name. I don't know much about them, but I feel like there's so many Russians that are so good. Again, I've brought up the artist Bato, B-O-T-O, B-O-T-T-O, Bato. Just do these very half-baked paintings that I just think are so beautiful. So fine art that feels effortless. Great paintings feel alive, not overworked. If the colors and lighting seem right and the style resonates, the painting likely achieves its goal without feeling forced. Right? I mean, we have looked at so much different stuff here, right? So many different styles, so many different ideas. So I gave you a list of 14, right? You can't even possibly begin to incorporate all of those into a painting. It just would become cumbersome. So a lot of times you kind of want to pick a couple of these, Darlene, that are kind of like, what is it that I'm trying to bring across, right? Again, the word for this class, the word for this year for me is intention, right? So going into your painting with an intention doesn't mean it has to be fully formed in your head. Because I love the act of discovery while I'm painting. But going in with an intention, and that can be, it's about this, or I want to capture these colors, or it can be, I just want to invite this mood and feeling or story into my life or somebody else's life. I think it's important, and something, this is a reminder for myself, is to paint things that we want to see brought into this world. Make paintings for ourselves. That is one of the main things. People can tell when we're painting for ourselves first. I can't remember what book it was. Oh, it was The Creative Act. Really fantastic art book. Talks about do not paint or create music, in that case, with the audience in mind. Create with yourself first.
What was the name of the book?
The Creative Act. And what's the name of the author? Surprised it's not here in front of me. It's just such a good book. I bought the audio book of it, and I've listened to it like 4 or 5 times. I listen to it a lot when I'm either waking up or going to sleep. I've even put it on like 0.75 speed and listen to it. It's just like a meditation. It's so good.
Wow.
But it's what's so great about it too is every chapter almost contradicts the chapter before it. And what he's basically telling you that that there's no wrong way to create, and that everything is an act of creation, and that we just keep trying different things, or we can get in a rut and we can completely try different things, right? If you're doing thumbnails every time and you just feel like, oh, they're bogging me down, stop doing thumbnails. Just jump into your painting and attack it, right? You know, if we're overworking, or vice versa, if your paintings aren't working because you're just attacking them and you're never getting them to a refinement, then maybe do thumbnails and collect all these sketches. So there's no one thing that makes a painting pop. This was my hour and a half of telling you why that's true. But again, Darlene, I thank you for the question of, how do I make a painting pop? How do I make a landscape painting successful? And the answer is all these ways and none of these ways, and maybe you'll find your own ways, but then that makes me useless as a teacher. But that's what
I
I
like
guess.
starting with yourself. I like that idea
Yeah.
of starting with just what you need to paint. What you need, do you need something exciting, or do you need something quiet? What it is that you need, and then letting that develop.
So is the book The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin? Is that the book?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Rick,
So it is so good. And again, if you're an audiobook person at all, just get the audiobook. He's got such a nice voice, and he really comes through in it. Yeah, I love that book.
Well, you said something else last week, because I was kind of sniveling about, I don't want to copy somebody else's work. I want to do my own work. But you said there's nothing wrong with that. And so I went back and I looked through the artists that you'd shown to us. And then I looked at the ones that really said something to me and picked those out. And then spent a lot of time looking at those and thinking, what is it about that particular painting that's really appealing to me? And I'm beginning to really see a benefit to actually, trying to copy another artist's work, because then I can see what it is about their work that is grabbing me and how did they achieve that. So
amen, sister.
That's
You're
it.
on to something.
Well, and
getting the picture.
that's how a lot of the great masters started out, was copying great masters from before them.
But I
then-
think, yeah, that's exactly right, because of technique. But you're definitely onto something too, is continually asking, what is it that I like? Just again, like that game I played with my wife, going into the galleries. Why do I like that painting? It's
Exactly.
going beyond.
When you spend the time trying to, duplicate that piece of art, you're not just glancing at it from the outside briefly. You are really getting into each part of it, and you're spending time with each part of it, and you're examining it very closely, because that's what it takes to be able to, copy or duplicate that work. So it is a very highly beneficial technique to learn to paint, I believe. And I've been
100%.
I did not grasp that for a long time. I'm finally getting that.
Right. Yeah. And one of the questions we had in our group on Sunday was, how do you even know you like a painting? Like, how does that feel? Like, why do we know we like one painting and not another? And then why do sometimes we don't like a painting initially, and then it starts to grow on us? Is it learning the background of it? Is it learning about the artist? Is it or just all of a sudden you just start to notice things? And there might be, again, don't even need to like the whole painting. You can like aspects of the painting. A lot of times I find myself critiquing the painting, but usually I don't critique paintings I don't like. I usually critique the paintings that I like more, but begin to ask, not even critiquing so much as, but what would I have done differently? Just a little bit. So yeah, Dawn Remison, how do you know when you like a painting versus when you don't like a painting? Like, can you feel that in your body?
Yeah, mostly it's emotional. My philosophy is I admire people who can paint photographically, but I think that's what cameras are for. I look for artists who interpret things, and probably something that's emotional, it has more appeal to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, and yeah, like I see the skill in photographic, reproduction, and I see the technique, but yeah, it doesn't often move me the same. And like I showed you those David Sharp paintings and, some of those abstracts, just to really show you that, 10, 20 years ago, I would not have cared for those at all. But as my work has changed, as my appreciation in my work has changed, as my appreciation in other work has changed, but I can also tell a really crap abstract painting too, right? There's so much lousy, abstract landscape paintings that just don't do anything for me. So, yeah. How about you, Graham? How do you know when you like painting?
Michael, we can't see you.
Oh, sorry.
For me, it's all about impact. I think when I walk into a gallery or I'm searching for art online, which I'm doing all the time, it's impact, it's color, and it's also almost always representational. I don't get abstract art, and it doesn't appeal to me. However,
Sure,
one
yeah.
that you showed that you said you liked, it's very appealing because it is somewhat representational, because I could tell, what it was. But I think for me, it's mostly color and impact. But that said, my taste in art has changed over time. As I develop as a writer, I started off really liking Western art like Glenn Dean and C. Russell Case and, that kind of stuff. I loved it. But I'm sort of drifting. I find that I really like cloudscapes and those kind of mysterious, colorful, I don't know. Christine Code is one of my favorite artists right now. And it's the color that gets me.
Yeah, so and see, color makes me so uncomfortable. Like I really gravitate towards the earthy.
We know
and
that.
yeah. I mean, that pink one behind me there, I keep going, how can I glaze that to get rid of that color? But some people who walk into the studio are like, oh my God, I love it. I can't believe you finally painted a bright painting. So I'll probably put it out into the world. But yeah, anybody else Kim, I wanted to ask you, Kim, because you're coming from a fully different school of learning and style. And, what is it that made you gravitate towards this class? But also I'd just like to ask the same question of,
what I saw was you speaking about the tonalism course, which I'd signed up for with Mastrius, and then it didn't run. And the joy you had, the light in the painting, and then the joy you had and said, paint for the love of it, like that. And so that's what inspired me. But I also really realized that you can have a love for other people's paintings, their styles. Like I've got various different styles of painting in my home, but that doesn't necessarily, I can love their style and what they're doing, but that doesn't necessarily have to be my style. There's maybe, like, I've always really loved the neutral colors, and so that's what I love. When I honestly, you just made my heart sing doing that wipeout and using just those tonalistic colors. It's like my creative heart exploded, and I can't tell you how beautiful that was, because I've been trying to do this for a very long time. So so right now I'm open to lots of different things, but that this is just like the time I spent with you already is just so incredibly inspiring, and just learning so much, and I'm really falling in love with the whole thing. So thank you.
No, thank you. That was a great answer. Yeah, one of the artists in my group talked about when a painting that he's doing feels like coming home. Yeah. And I was like, I never really thought of that. But yeah, there's this, it's like coming home. It's like coming back to yourself. And again, I talk about this all the time, but I'm not trying to tell you how to paint. I'm just trying to present tools and ideas, that enough of them that each one of us is going to take those and mix those different elements and find their own home, right? And I strongly suggest continuing to experiment, and experiment feels like getting lost, right? When we're really stepping out of our comfort zone. But again, you can always come home, and you may have discovered some secret treasure on that little adventure that you can bring back with you. The hero's quest kind of thing. I've never said that before. That's kind of goofy, but yeah, I'm trying to read my notes really quickly. but I think we covered it. It's important to look outward into the world to see things. It's important to look at a lot of artwork, but I think it's just as important, and something that takes the time, is that looking inward and reflecting on all of that. It's getting the information and then filtering it through ourselves and our canvas and our paint. And I think, we want to hear the answer. It's like, how do I find my style? How do I, do these things? But it's got to be trial and error. It's got to be a learning process. And the thing that I'm constantly reminding myself that in art especially is true, that it isn't the destination. It is the journey, right, Graham? It is this constant growth and exploration. And we'll kind of know it when we see it, kind of a thing. So, hey, Graham, I want to tell you, you should share your website with our class. That was so fun to go through your website and learn about your history and your books. And Graham was a musician or is a musician.
Wow.
And how many books have you published?
20.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
They look so cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I was a writer for books for young readers. I spent 30 years going into schools, talking to the kids and writing books for elementary, middle school, and high school level. However, adults do like my books too, because there's a lot of, between the lines kind of things. And I don't know, I just like art, I wrote what I wanted to read, and so I think that's the way to success, is to, like what you said, paint for yourself and not for an audience. If you try to paint for an audience, the audience changes every month. There's something new they want. So you just have to do what you love to do. And I think by experimenting and just doing it, getting your butt in the chair every day and doing it, that's how it happens. And you don't go out and find your style. Your style finds you. It just comes out of you. And that's the way I look at it. So
Absolutely.
so I've had 3 careers in art. Writing, music, and now visual arts. And
Wow.
that's the way I'm going to go out on roller skates. So
there you go. That's fantastic. Yeah, a closing note before we take a break here. I remember in one of my shows kind of earlier on in my career, and listening to a lady as she was slowly moving her way across the wall towards my work, just go, oh my God, I love this. Oh, I love this. And she got to painting. She, I do not like this. I do not like this. And then I think her friend whispered in her ear, and she turned to me like, oh, sorry. I was like, no, that's great. These paintings aren't for you. That's fantastic. Like I was actually kind of relieved, because the work she really liked, I did not like. It was such an early lesson in my life that, because if you're painting for the audience, what audience? Like if I was trying to make her happy, I would be really unhappy, And so just remembering that the audience is how many people are on this planet, especially with the internet. If you want to share your work, the audience is your family, which could be a huge, with a couple of them. But yeah, painting for ourselves, learning for ourselves. And that's what's so fun, is I could tell you, Phyllis, you need to go study so-and-so. And you'd be like looking at them like, why? I hate this. I want to go study these other people. And so I invite you to go on these journeys, to explore, to go down these rabbit holes. I'm hoping some of these artists that I shared with you might inspire you to look them up on Pinterest or Instagram. And then from there, you might be led down, oh, this is how their inspiration was, or, anything else. So it's the exploration. Nyla and I were talking before class about the new book she got by Edgar Payne, or of Edgar Payne's paintings, which is one of my favorite books as well, art books. And it's just so fun to when you find something that really attracts you, to dive into that a little bit. And, when you're looking at that book, you'll learn about the other artists that he was inspired by, or painting with, or inspired. Glendine is one of the artists that Edgar Payne very much inspired, that Don was talking about. Or was that you, Graham? I'm not sure. But anyways, anything else to add before we take a little break? And then my next question, well, actually, let me stop the camera. Any last comments before?
I had one. I was thinking
Sure,
back
Lisa.
to the first time I saw one of your paintings in Dragonfire.
Mhm.
And I know now that it was a wipe away, and I was just stunned. Like it just stopped me because of the light and the depth and all of that. And I was just, I couldn't even, it just stopped me. I still remember that. I didn't have enough money to buy it, but it was fabulous. And then I went back, I think it was probably a few years later, and there was this other painting. I didn't know it was yours, but it was a very different style. And it was like of a hillside, and there was this little bird. And I still remember this painting and this bird because I followed. It was like I went on a walk through the painting and I saw this little bird. I still remember the bird. I loved that bird. And so it's not even, I mean, and the style, if you want, they were completely different. But I think what you're saying, that makes a lot of sense to me now, because I've often wondered about that. Like, why was I so attracted to these incredibly different paintings? But I think it's because you really liked that bird and you really liked that sunset. And I think that's what came through. I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I hated that bird, but no, I'm just kidding.
It was adorable.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I used to have a sign on my wall that said, "If you paint with love and joy, the viewer will see it." And I think that's important, and or feel it, I think is what I said. But and I think that, you know, we try to do that, and sometimes we get so caught up in the how-to of a thing that we forget about the love and the joy. And, you know, it's not always easy, and it's not all painting is always fun. One of you wrote on our Padlet that, you know, you laugh when people say, "Oh, you're a painter. That must be so relaxing." Because yeah, it can be a lot of struggle, and we have to love the struggle. But there are times of ultimate joy, and you have to, like I said, you have to enjoy the struggle and the wrestling match that is bringing that across in the painting. So anyways, I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to talk to you for one more minute here.